My name is Tracy Weiser, and I am going to be your worship partner today. I'd like to welcome everyone to Westminster, both in person and online. It's nice to see you all. The chalice is the symbol of our faith, and our chalice lighting marks the beginning of our worship time together. I will light mine and share our reading. If you are online, I invite you to light yours also if you have one. And if you like, you can post the name of the street where your chalice was lit in the chat. At this hour, in small towns and big cities, in single rooms and ornate sanctuaries, many of our sibling Unitarian Universalist congregations are also lighting a flaming chalice. As we light our chalice today, let us remember that we are part of a great community of faith. May this dancing flame inspire us to fill our lives with the Unitarian Universalist ideals of love, justice, and truth.
I'm Ellen Quaadgras. I am the minister here, and I also want to welcome all of you who are here in person and all of you who are here online. It's good to see you. I can't see all of you online right now, but it's good to see all of you who are here in person. And this is our last Sunday on the theme of renewing faith. I want to acknowledge Reverend Meg Barnhouse as the source of the two readings you will hear today about questions. Our first for these opening words is by the author Yuval Noah Harari. People throughout history, he writes, worried that unless we put all our faith in some set of absolute answers, human society would crumble. In fact, modern history has demonstrated that a society of courageous people willing to admit ignorance and raise difficult questions is usually not just more prosperous, but also more peaceful than societies in which everyone must unquestioningly accept a single answer. People afraid of losing their truth tend to be more violent than people who are used to looking at the world from several different viewpoints. Questions you cannot answer are usually far better for you than answers that you cannot question. And today's service is about questions, about you all getting to ask questions about renewing faith in particular, but about other things too related to this congregation or spirituality or church. Not because I have all the answers, but I don't at all, but as we understand something about the power of questions, about curiosity, about exploration and wondering. And this is an experiment in spontaneity. I am typically, as I have talked about before, someone who likes to prepare and then prepare some more. My hope is that in the flow of questions and answers, the Spirit may move differently among us. Who knows what will happen? Either way, today I invite you to bring your curiosity, bring your wondering, bring your spirit of exploration as we gather here in this circle of kinship. Let us rise in body or in spirit and sing our opening, rather hum our opening hymn together. If you're here in person, you can sing if you are at home. It's Here We Have Gathered. And Bruce and Annetta will sing it for us. Please remain standing as we say together our unison affirmation found in your order of service. Love is the census, our is great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Amen. Please be seated.
Good morning. My name is Sue Bolens, and I'm a pastoral care associate here at Westminster, along with Camila Bazikowski and Rob DeLong. Reverend Ellen is available for pastoral counseling, and we're available to listen and to be support for anyone who needs a listening ear.
Let us gather our hearts and minds in a spirit of prayer or meditation. Let us hold all of these joys and sorrows that have been expressed. Joy of being in community, joy of brand new life, the many unspoken joys among us. We hold all of these. And let us hold the sorrows among us as well, losses, fresh and painful, losses that happened some time ago that still hurt, and all of the other difficulties and sorrows that are among us and our families. We hold all of this in our hearts. Even as we gather as a community of faith and pause to reflect on all of it, everything in us, everything in these times, everything in our culture. on the needs of all people, our own, those we love, and those beyond this place. May we continue to work and pray for goodness and righteousness in the world. We speak here frequently of the power of hope and justice, and we strive to take steps to help make that happen. And at the same time, every day, every week, we see in the media and in the lives and in our lives, pain and suffering and unjust actions in the world. Spirit of life, may we find hope when witnessing tragic events. May we not turn away, but find the strength to take some action, no matter how small it may seem. Spirit, help us to know that a better world is possible and that our thoughts and actions matter. May we feel the strength of that spirit on our journey. May we hold that strength in our hearts and take a few moments now of quiet reflection, meditation, and prayer. Amen. Please remain seated as Bruce and Nonetta will sing the song in response, Spirit of Life.
Our March recipient of Share the Plate is the Women's Resource Center. The mission of the Women's Resource Center has always been the prevention of domestic violence and to provide support services to individuals in Newport and Bristol counties. The other half of our offering goes to support all of the good work of this community. You can donate using the link that is now being placed in the chat. And if you are here in person, we ask that you use your cell phone to click on the donate button on the Westminster website. Or you may leave your offering in the box on the table after the service. The offering will now be given and received with gratitude. Unsolved in your heart. Try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms and like books written in a foreign language. Do not now look for the answers. They now cannot be given to you because you could not live them. It is a question of experiencing everything. At present, you need to live the question. Perhaps you will gradually, without even noticing it, find yourself experiencing the answer some distant day.
So Tracy is going to go gather the questions from the question box, and we'll all sit in quiet anticipation as she does that and see if there are in fact any questions you have for me. But don't worry, I came up with some just in case. Okay, we got some, because apparently other and I've heard about question box sermons for years that other congregations have done. So I did look up a couple of questions from other congregations because, you know, as you use, we frequently have similar questions as each other. So let's hear a question. All right, thank you. Beautiful. How do you describe Unitarian Universalism to people who have never heard of this path to faith? I love that. That was the first question in 2 other question box sermons I watched. So this is sort of the quintessential elevator speech question, right? So I'm going to give you a couple different answers depending on how tall your building is. If it's just a couple stories, you could go with the version that we teach our young people, which is that we are the faith of the, and I'm going to get the order wrong, so someone else knows the order, but we are the church of the loving heart, the open mind, and the helping hands. So that's actually, it's the 1 floor elevator speech. Another version that I like to say, which is more about this congregation, is to share who we are and how we live our faith, which is by welcoming all people widely, by connecting with each other and the holy and the earth, and by serving each other and the world to the end that we transform ourselves and the world toward more justice, truth, and beauty. So that's the 3-story answer. The really long answer, if you've got someone like at a cocktail hour and they don't have anywhere to go, you could start with the Reformation in the 1500s. So when Luther nailed those 99 theses to the door of the church and the Protestant movement exploded to, I don't know how many there are, thousands and thousands of denominations. We were one branch of that tree. We are a particularly liberal branch. We have a wide tent. We have developed a wide tent that welcomes beliefs from many traditions and honors beliefs from many traditions. We bring who we are as we are, and we learn from each other in conversation. And another important piece, so some of us believe in God, some of us don't, but the key thing is that we believe our lives on earth matter. What we do matters here and now, and we strive to live that faith together. So that's my version of 3 versions of an elevator speech. And I encourage you to come up with your own, something that feels true to you in your heart, because it's a beautiful faith and this is a beautiful place, and letting people know about it is a gift to them and to us. Okay.
This one kind of goes off of what you just mentioned.
Oh, perfect. Oh, yeah. Do Unitarians believe in any sort of God? So there's a couple pieces to that question. One is, do Unitarians believe? And the other is any sort of God. So I'll answer the first one first. Unitarians, as I just alluded to, don't necessarily believe any one thing as a group. What we have, of course, well, some of you are newer, so what we have is our 7 principles that are an organizing set of values around acknowledging the inherent worth and dignity of all people, equity, justice, and compassion in human relations, a search for truth. I won't name them all, but there are 7 of them, the interdependent web, and those are unifying values that all Unitarian Universalist churches talk about and strive towards. And was that approval, Al? So so in terms of beliefs, as a group, those really are our core principles. In terms of any sort of God, we're all in different places, and that's a beautiful thing. We were all raised with different understandings of God. I love the way a colleague of mine put it. It's like having an Aunt Sarah. I have an Aunt Sarah. You might have an Aunt Sarah. My Aunt Sarah was loving and kind and generous, and I love to think about her and remember her and act the way she acted in her life. Your Aunt Sarah might have been mean and kind of scary and brings up bad memories. So we, and so we all were raised with different understandings of who or what God is. And part of the beautiful thing, as I mentioned, that we get to do is to talk to each other about that and heal the places where religion or God language was hurtful to us, and potentially take in ways in which religious language or ideas of God could be helpful or positive for us going forward. So those are a few thoughts on that question. So I'm just going to look in the chat to see what we've got here. Yeah. In dark times, what can prayer look like for someone who doesn't believe in a traditional notion of God? It's almost like these are meant to build on each other. Spirit's moving. It must be so comforting for those who have something familiar and ingrained to fall back on. That is a really great question as well. And we've been through some dark times in recent times. And what can any of us hold on to or bring to that that helps us cope and move forward in positive ways? So prayer in particular, I will say that, again, it has something to do with how we were raised to believe what prayer is, and the opportunity to think freshly about that. So many of us were raised, and out in the world, there is the idea that prayer is always to a God that you hope will intervene in the circumstances of your life or in the world's. Some of us don't believe that anymore. Some of us do. And prayer will look different depending on how you relate to what its purpose is. So I will talk personally about myself, because I think that is part of what prayer is. It's very personal. And I will encourage you to experiment for yourself with what works for you. It's kind of a muscle that you can develop, and it's a very, very personal aspect of your spirituality. For me, prayer is about tapping into my deep longings and yearnings and hurts, and allowing a compassionate presence in with them. So there is an element of imagination in that. There is sometimes I will bring in an idea of maybe God, or maybe a loved one who has died, who I bring to mind. My dad sometimes shows up for me and witnesses to whatever it is that's going on in my heart. And I have found that to be profoundly supportive and healing. I think for any of us, that can be challenging to tap into those deep yearnings and longings. So creating some space and some patience with yourself around that is important. And I will mention that there is a wonderful book by Reverend Eric Walker Wickstrom. It's called Simply Pray. And he has something like 17 different ways to begin a prayer practice. So different concrete things you can try if you want to develop something for yourself. But those are some thoughts on prayer. And for me too, I'll say I don't particularly believe in a God that intervenes in the world. But I do believe that when I pray, something often shifts inside of me, and the world looks different to me, and I relate differently to it, and things change in me or around me because of it. So that's something about my personal prayer practice. All right, we'll go back to our in-person questions and see what else we've got. This is one I offered to myself, so I have only myself to blame for including this. How do you uphold the inherent worth and dignity of people who clearly don't deserve it? Right? So this question too has a number of different levels in my mind. There are the extreme cases that might have come to your mind in this moment of dictators and despots in the world whose actions are anything but worth, are anything but demonstrating dignity and worth, right? So how do you reconcile that with our first principle? And I will say that there's a little parable that I put in a newsletter article recently of someone standing in front of the White House with a candle in the rain. And someone walks up to this person and says, "Why are you standing in front of the White House with a candle in the rain? Do you really think you're going to change something here? Like, you're trying to change the world?" And this person says, "I am not here to change the world. I am here so that the world does not change me." And so with someone like a truly, someone who is expressing hate and violence in their actions. It's a koan, it's a Buddhist puzzle to nevertheless bring something of an open heart to that situation, because it's good for us, because we don't want to shut down, because we don't want to get cynical. And I have no answer for that. That is a journey that we each get to undertake, how to possibly reconcile, or not even reconcile, but just experience something about bringing that very radical principle in this situation to a particular circumstance. So that's one piece of this question that I want to offer to you. Another piece of the question is more personal in your own life. There may also be people who don't appear to deserve worth and dignity or respect from you, whatever you want to call it. And I will say that offering someone inherent worth and dignity is not the same as being a doormat. It's not the same as drawing no boundaries. I think with certain people in our lives, we need to do that. We can't stay in relationship with certain people who have certain patterns that are hurtful to us. I think that's separate from acknowledging that as humans, created by the mystery of the universe, that humans have some inherent worth and deserve dignity. So the boundary piece is important. The other thing I will say is that very practically, the more that we treat people with inherent worth and dignity, in addition to drawing those important boundaries, the more that we bring our hearts to that place, the more likely it is that they're going to live up to our expectations. Not everyone will, but it creates an opening. It creates more room for positive change in other people. So moving on, regarding curiosity and wonder, how can we or I accept that I may never find all the answers I feel I want and need before I die? That's a beautiful and powerful question that it speaks in my mind to the separation of mind and heart. And I remember uncertainty about where I was going to land, and all of us were in different places in our lives, and carrying that question is hard. And yet, it's poignant. It's part of the beauty is that we can't know and we don't know, and we get to carry that with each other. So those are some non-answers to your question about wanting answers. All right, what else we got?
I'm going to give you two.
Okay.
So you can decide on your time.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes. Okay. Can you tell us about the response to the All That You Dream service? So that was 2 weeks ago. Many of you were there, and I want to thank you all for the responses that you gave. There was probably 60 people in the